Hi everybody, in this lecture video I'll try to provide an overview connecting Lotte Reiniger's early silhouette film to today's understanding of virtual reality and generative visual content. I'll try to make an argument of the relevance and the currency as well as the artistic legacy when it comes to Lotte Reiniger's work. So we'll get started. This study is possible because of the support from the 2024 Northwest XR grant issued by Bellevue College XR Lab because of NSF grants that we received 2 years ago. So I'm very grateful that through this project I get to meet with you, and please do reach out to me, and I would love to stay connected to you for future possible collaborations. And I hope you like this presentation. You probably already know a little bit about Lotte Reiniger's work, and she's a pioneer filmmaker. She invented her own genre, and that's silhouette animation film. And she experimented as early as 1922 in some of her early clips, some of the very new concept when it comes to filmmaking, such as montage. And she created the first feature-length film, The Adventure of Prince Achmed, which we're going to use many examples to explain Lotte Reiniger's unique understanding when it comes to art and space in this mini lecture. The other experiment that I think succeeded really well in Lotte Reiniger's work is how she played with the concept of size and scale to create a very successful 3D visual illusion, and in other particular cases really aided the storytelling process. For instance, in her early work, Harlequin, as well as Ashramputin, she provided the size and the scale to showcase how the camera is now zooming to look at really small animals like mice, how they're dancing around the broom, when in fact she just used the broom and cut it out in a model that's really larger than the usual size to give out the illusion of space and zooming. What's more important is that in her selection of stories and the way she told those stories, she maintained a consistent focus on the pursuit of truth. If you know her, you know that she later fled from Germany to London with her husband because of Hitler during the Second World War, of their persecution towards the Jews. She's really sick of news propaganda for a while, and she said very famously that I'd rather look for the truth in fairy tales rather than believing in the stories in the news. So she maintained this consistent focus on truth in her presentation of fairy stories. She also provided and empowered women of their expression of their self-voice, and an early establishment of the concept of femininity. In doing so, most of her stories are surround adventures involving women who not only participated in the storytelling process as a main character, but in many ways drives the development of the story. They make decision, their action contributed to the development of the plot. So I appreciate that as well. I'd like to conclude the first slide, and I'll go back to the slide later, that Lotte Reiniger's art really present a philosophical interrogation over presence and the void between the directly visible and the imagined. She has many new inventions in her work, and I'll use a few examples from her feature-length film, The Adventures of Prince Achmed, to further illustrate that. The most extraordinary aspect of her work in relation to today's topic, which is the relevance and currency of her art when it comes to today's new world of virtual reality and generated visual content, is her understanding of space and emotion at the turn of last century, so that was 100 years from today. This is a keyframe from Adventures of Prince Alchemist. This is the first example I would like to use as well. Let's look at this space. We immediately know that this is indoors, and this was because of a few artifacts within this space. If you see the round-shaped cutout structure over here, that's the lamp. And we know that it is an indoors environment immediately because we can see the lamp. And we can also see the shape of the ceiling. And maybe the ceiling is really extravagantly decorated because some part was purposefully dimmed, and with the gradual change of color, we can imagine that the ceiling is really glittering with a variety of colors. And we also know that the background color is pink. And if you know about this plot, and you know that this is when the Prince Alchemist visited the princess palace, and he's playing around with all of her lady-in-waiting at court. So this is a very playful scene, and the color pink as the background color indicated the overwhelming emotion of happy and frolicking scene for this particular keyframe. This is another keyframe, and this is when Prince Alchemist meeting with princess for the first time in the kingdom of Waka Waka. This is also one of my best favorite keyframe. Everything is very well decorated. The feather on top of Prince Alchemist headdress, as well as the very extravagant decoration, the crown and everything else, the veil, and also the finger gestures and the hand of both characters. This is a close-up as well, and we can see the emotion buried underneath the surface. I think both of them are very excited and nervous, and maybe they are curious about this person that they're meeting for the first time. The background color also resonant with that overwhelming emotion as well. At this point, we know that this keyframe is outdoors immediately because of the distant skyline of the temple and everything. And we also know that close up, we have this conversation going on. The two individuals, they're holding hands, and one person is perhaps making a proposal to the other. All of those has been clearly expressed because of the body language. And that is one thing that Lotte Reiniger did really, really well with her use of silhouette art, is that the profile and the body language, the gestures, and how people are at times looking at each other and at other times looking away from each other, all of those are used as an indication of the plot development and the expression of emotions. This is the last example from the feature-length film, The Adventure of Prince Alchemist, that I would like to highlight in this mini lecture. And this is when the princess is stepping into the water when the evening falls to have her daily ritual bath in the water, together with two of her lady-in-waiting in the water. We know that it's the water, not because Lotte Reiniger has actual water present in her shooting studio, but because she very cleverly helped us to imagine the presence of water. And this is because we see the shadow, and we imagined that those are shadows underneath the half cut out a figure of both the princess, because her left foot is already stepped into the water, as well as both feet of her lady-in-waiting, because she's already, with both her feet standing in the water, and the rest are just the shadows. And we know that those are not shadows, but then we imagined those as the shadows. And this is a very significant keyframe in my view, because Lotte Reiniger actually invited the audience to participate in the visual storytelling through their imagination. we're willing to imagine and believe in this world that we have imagined, and that is the beauty of her silhouette film. She did not seek to capture any other details to create a sense of authenticity. It was just this piece of imagination, but then the color blue as the background really give out the sense of tranquility and mystery, and the princess is stepping into the water, and the water is imagined. So I would like to conclude with this quote that we're revisiting. If you still remember that Lotte Reiniger's art really calls for a philosophical interrogation over presence and the void. So we know who is present, and we know what is solid, but in here we are willing to give up with all of those understandings. We know what's directly visible, but from the direct visible, we stepped into the imagined land. I think this is what today's virtual reality is trying to give us as well. When we put up the headset, we know that it is visual illusions, but we're willing to give away ourselves for the moment being, and we just step into the imagined land. In that regard, Lotte Reiniger's silhouette film really created an artistic impact for the audiences in ways that no less powerful if compared with today's new visual technology. What's really more significant is to understand and come to know Lotte Reiniger as an artist, as a woman, as a curious individual to begin with. She's in connection with important art movement as well as artist circle. Very briefly, she's under the influence, and she receives support from the very influential art movement of Bauhaus in German back then. I believe that her commitment in freehand paper cutting really is coming from the influence of the Bauhaus artistic movement. What she believed in, and I have in the parenthesis here, Schreschnitten, and this is a pair of scissors in German language, and it believed in the freehand cutting of using a pair of scissors as your creation tool. If you are drawing, you use your pen and your brushes, and if you are doing freehand cutting, you use your pair of scissors, your Schreschnitten, to do that. She also received influence from Chinese paper cutting and silhouette puppetry, the shadow silhouette puppetry, as well as the influence from, and she attended this particular school herself actually, the Charlottenburger Waldschule. This is the school for the children who have some type of sickness, and they believe in the value of studying under the direct sun exposure. So that is the understanding of Charlottenburger Waldschule, and this gives Lotte Reiniger some understanding of the beauty of nature, and this probably will continue for a long way for her into her career into adulthood. She's also in contact with the artist circle. I would like to call out Carl Koch and her lifelong partner, husband, and artistic colleagues. In many of the photos of her trick table, her Tricktisch, when she's leaning forward, you can always see Carl Koch working really close by her side. So they work together, but they are also partners with one another. Lotte Reiniger also worked with very influential and successful German expressionism filmmakers such as Fritz Lang, and then later for French realism film directors such as Jean Renoir, and Italian realism film directors such as Luchino Visconti. So he's in contact with many artists and filmmakers, and they inspire each other and they influence each other. The key frame over here is from the Thumbelina, so the little girl out of a flower, And we can see over here of how the fairies are positioned in comparison with the size of the flower, and that goes back to our early claim of her clever use when it comes to size, and play with that concept of size to give people an illusion of how big or how small things really are. We would like to conclude with some of the legacies that Lotte Reiniger left behind. She certainly reinterpreted the influence from the East, and in this key frame, and this is when Prince Alchemid for the first time disclosed his love and passion towards the princess. They're still in the land of Waka Waka, and he's saying to her that you can go back to me, to my country, and we can live together. And this is a significant scene. They're outdoors, definitely. They're underneath this willow tree. But then the background, we can see that the landscape, the mountains, are gradually dimmed into the distance. That use of color is ink wash, and that's definitely influenced from traditional Chinese ink wash landscape painting, about showing a visual illusion of distance by playing with the different shades of gray. And then we talked about the notion of space several times, as well as her use of the kinesics, the fingertips, body language, interpersonal distance, and how characters controlling and then manipulating the personal distance as an instrument to tell stories and convey emotions. And definitely the study of haptics and emotions are very much in touch with her clever use of backgrounds, colors, and so on. Lotte Reiniger has great inventions. She came up with this idea of trick table or trickkish, and it predated Walt Disney's development of the similar concept into the multiplane camera. She served as an inspiration for future generations of women filmmakers because of how she maintained the voice for female characters and how she committed to the expression and the belief in the truth. So with this, you can develop this content into many lesson plans depending on how you as an instructor would like to focus your day's content. Using Lotte Reiniger's work as an example, you can certainly talk about the concept of scale. You can also talk about the successful illusion of space and the 3D visual illusion of space. You can also have a hands-on activity to ask students to create freehand paper cutting. You can introduce very simple shapes initially, and then if you have multiple days, and you can introduce more sophisticated shapes and maybe make an actual silhouette paper puppets. And then you can even build a rig, and you can use just paper cardboard and a very simple structure to do that with a phone and with very simple and accessible editing softwares. It's a very doable process. I'm very happy that I get to talk about this with you, and please definitely reach out to me if you would like to collaborate more. I really believe that Lotte Reiniger's work can serve as a very interesting venue for an interdisciplinary conversation going on to support teaching and learning in different regards. Thank you for your attention.